Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. The Loch Ness Monster. Really, just one of many anomalous sea creatures around the world. If you're in North America, Lake Champlain has sightings of something similar to the Loch Ness Monster. Even Lake Ontario, as polluted and boat ridden as it is, also has its own sightings of a strange, long sea creature with a big neck. This is something that intrigues me, and I'm sure intrigues a lot of people, because there is just enough evidence out there. And I'm not talking pictures. There's so many pictures that have been admitted to be false and admitted to be, tampered with. And it's 2024. We know that pretty much any fifth grader can take a photo of everything and insert the picture of the CN Tower into it. Look at this. There's a CN Tower on Mars, or whatever the heck it is. And this is a technique that's been in a long, long time. Arthur, I can't remember his name, the guy that wrote the Sherlock Holmes series, was one of the first to come across it when he looked into the Cottingley fairies, which is something I intend to go into. And these girls claimed that they had been encountering fairies, then admitted they faked most of the shots, but a couple of them were genuine. We'll never know for sure what the end of that story is, but it is fascinating. Conan Doyle? You know who I'm talking about. But what I want to concentrate on is the mere facts about sea creatures. Now, for generations, scientists said there's no creature that big. It's impossible for something to get that big and strange and weird. All while the great whales were out there in numbers. And in more recent years, they found giant squids, like huge, 20 meters long. And these things are living down in the bottom, the depths, the abyss, whatever you want to call it. And they're surviving just fine. Now, the problem with great whales and great squid is they don't really like to come into shallow water. And yes, even Lake Champlain and Loch Ness are considered shallow water for their species. But we haven't cataloged every single species on the planet. Every year they discover something new. And while Loch Ness is popular enough, Lake Champlain is also popular enough. I'm just going to stick with those two because if I break it down lake by lake, we're going to be here until like Tuesday or Wednesday. So let's just look at those two examples. Now, the one thing that we do have are trout and salmon. Trout, that little fish you get in a can you put on your sandwich? Trout grow to immense sizes. As a matter of fact, the Japanese have a bidding war for the first fish that comes off the boat because it's believed to symbolize luck. And these things are enormous and millions of dollars are paid for them. So it's not a surprise to anybody, but that was just my way to conclude. Saltwater fish can grow to gigantic sizes. Fun fact, the tuna is one of the least studied fish species in the world. Not because we know everything about it, but it's not a really sexy thing to go after. I mean, whales. Ooh, whales are beautiful. They have their beautiful whale song. Sharks, the killers of the deep. So when you say, I want to study tuna, finding an actual sponsor to give you money for your study, it's not a sexy thing. Salmon. This is the life cycle I want to look in on. because this could explain the Loch Ness and Lake Champlain thing. Salmon, at the end of their life, come back from salt water to fresh water. They mate, they reproduce, whatever you want to call it, then they die. But then they lay their eggs there, and the baby salmon, I don't know what a baby salmon is called, I'm sorry. Comment in the comments if you feel like correcting me. Not hard to correct me, you just have to realize where my knowledge fails. And then they turn around, go out to sea, and develop the gills, the saltwater recycling system, etc., etc. So we have the record of animals going back between fresh and salt water and back again. I think is it the bull whale? The bull shark. The bull shark can come up into rivers to grab prey. So the saltwater freshwater barrier is not the impenetrable fence a lot of us like to believe it is. Some creatures are more tolerant of both environments, and some, of course, are less tolerant. But Lake Champlain and Loch Ness share an interesting factor. They're relatively isolated, they're relatively deep, and they do offer an excellent place to lay eggs to spawn whatever they need to do. Have you ever been around turtles? Turtles go to some crazy lengths to bury their eggs. They climb up out of water, they dig a little pit, deposit their eggs, and then all the little ones have to scramble to get into the water. Animals are very well adapted to safeguarding their young. Now, what if I told you that the reason there are so many sightings in the loch and in the lake is because that's where these things spawn, like a video game spawn point, except organic. That opens up the opportunity for the entire Atlantic Ocean for these things to be wandering around. And reports of them sneaking into freshwater aren't quite so ridiculous. I don't think they're anything modern, and indeed there's records of like the 1000s, the 1000s AD, of some saint or another who encountered one of these creatures coming onto the land. He made the sign of the cross, and the creature ran away. Real story probably is the saint in question saw this Loch Ness, because that's where this took place, in close to land or whatever it is, probably fainted because this thing is big, enormous, and doesn't move. It'll look like anything he's ever seen before. And by the time he recovers, he's supposed to be a bishop. He's supposed to be calm and in control, and told everybody, yes, I made the sign of a cross, and it went away. Nobody's ever replicated this. Although if the story is correct, and there's more stories like it, both in Loch Ness and Lake Champlain, maybe this thing is even capable of coming up onto the land. Whether to rest, whether whatever. I mean, we know crocodiles come up on land, no problem. Certain species of fish will come into the incredibly shallow area to do whatever their business is. So this is possible. It's been documented through other creatures. And if that is Loch Ness and Lake Champlain's adaptation to safeguard themselves and their offspring, the story suddenly becomes a lot more interesting and scientific. Every year, the University of, is it Edinburgh? They get together some volunteers, throw some, dinghies and buoys and stuff like that into the river to try to get a picture of this creature of Loch Ness. And I don't know whether, New York State does anything similar for Lake Champlain. But every year it's a struggle to get volunteers, a struggle to get funding. They have the old boys they have put out there. And it's the typical thing. Oh, yeah, I want to see Loch Ness. Oh, well, you need to pay for 2 weeks to come out here. What? I'm not wasting my money on that. You're supposed to pay me. That's the funny thing about volunteering is these people are paying to go and investigate this. And while it's a great learning experience, it's one of those things that you just don't know. Now, back in the 90s, I believe it was, they got some really mysterious pictures from one of their hydrophones, their depth sensors, or something like that. And they're excited about it, but it's never been replicated. It's never been reproduced. But that's an indicator something is there, and if it comes in every couple years, or every year, or whatever their reproduction rate is, it's hard to tell. We know so little about this creature, we don't have a concrete example to point to. All we have is other things to draw lines to about how analogous they are to this so-called big creature. I don't think it's a dinosaur. As much as we all want it to be a dinosaur and have survived to the modern age, it's just unlikely. But the neat thing about fish and even mammals that are in the water, they figured out the ideal body plan for them to be successful inside water. Look at your basic fish. Torpedo shape. Tail that can sweep really fast and get going really fast. Mouth of some sort. There you go. You got yourself a fish. A whale. Same thing, except the fins are turned 90 degrees. Down really fast, it gets going really quick. Depict the Loch Ness monster is doing that with a long neck. We see this in dinosaurs where they had big fins and a long neck, and they were dinosaurs. They weren't supposed to be in the water. There were megalodons and stuff like that to worry about out there. But they survived because they recognized the basic body plan. So when you see these things and the pictures and all the evidence that's been offered, it's actually not unusual. It's not even as weird as a squid. And squids, I think, predate fish by a substantial amount. Evolution does funny things. And no matter what, squid, octopi, they evolved their own little niche. Crabs, everything evolves into a crab as the meme goes. And fish are the three basic body types in the ocean. So, when we talk about is such a creature possible, the answer is yes. Overwhelmingly yes. If it's an occasional visitor to Loch Ness, and you have to have more than one. So maybe they do a once a lifetime spawn just like the salmon do, or maybe they spawn every few years, but it's a lot of area to search. And if they like the North Bank because it's sunny this year, and next year the South Bank is sunny, again, I don't know the geography of Loch Ness off the top of my head. I know it's surrounded by big mountains. And sunlight depends on the angle. So that would cause its birthing grounds to move around. Right now, we're theorizing with a complete lack of evidence. We don't know what's going on in the loch, or in Lake Champlain, or in the many other rivers that are depicted with a sea monster or a sea serpent, or any of those things. The only thing we do know is life is incredibly diverse, and it can hide from us. Look at the coelacanth. Everybody points to the coelacanth, so why can't I? The coelacanth was believed extinct for 280 million years until they discovered a population in India, and then I think in the 80s they discovered a population off of the Gulf of Mexico. In the Gulf of Mexico, in that region, the Caribbean. So whole species have been known to hide from us. We're just discovering places that are deeper than the Marianas Trench. So why can't there be freaky things that are swimming around if they have the right the exact right paths for migration, and if they don't cross any shipping routes, it's fully possible these things could be completely undiscovered. Fishers and trawlers and stuff like that don't go out to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean unless they're looking for special species. So why wouldn't it be possible this thing could be hiding from us? And that's why they're called cryptids, hidden creatures. They may exist, we just haven't discovered them yet. And there's more evidence for the Loch Ness Monster than there are for a lot of other things. So maybe we're just not searching hard enough. Maybe we're not looking in the right direction, or maybe we've completely misidentified a species, which has happened before. They didn't understand the difference between chimps and bonobos until you had real researchers out there doing their absolute best. But I'll leave that for you to think about for a little while. With that, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, because sharing is caring. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Please click the notification bell so that way you can be notified every time we upload a new episode, usually every day at noon. And we hope you have a fantastic day.